Good morning, grade 3, 4s, and 5s, and welcome to our music lesson this week. What I'd like you to do, if you can, is to grab the sheet that I would have sent home for this week's lesson. And it looks like this. And we would have a full review sheet like this. So this fancy symbol is what we call the natural sign. Now, before we go any further, let's quickly review what we had talked about as far as the sharp and the flat sign. So we first introduced the sharp sign. And when we talked about the sharp sign, we mentioned that it's like going up to the front of the classroom to sharpen your pencil. So when this gets put in front of a note on a staff, it would have, remember, the peephole would have to sit with the line or the space in the center of it that you wanted to have changed or affected. So for instance, I made this a treble clef this week, and the lines, remember, were every good boy deserves fudge. So this B would be the one affected by the sharp sign because it's right through the peephole. Or if we put it in the space, we know the space in the treble clef, spell the word face, F-A-C-E. So the F would be affected by the sharp sign going up. Now we also talked last week about the flat sign. And the flat sign does the opposite of what the sharp sign does. The sharp sign makes the note go up, sharpen up, like the sharpener at the front of your classroom. The flat sign makes things go down. Think of stepping on something and flattening something by putting it down. So the flat sign goes down to the very nearest note that you're affecting. Okay? So if you were putting this flat sign, let's put it also through the third line of the treble clef, every good boy. The B would be flattened. You go down to the very nearest key. Now on the piano, that would be the very nearest key to the left or down. Black or white key. It doesn't matter. When you put this in front, it just simply says down to the very nearest note. Now after all that work of the composer or anybody writing music, sometimes in music they've added sharps and flats, and then very quickly after they said, don't want it anymore. And so what they can actually do is what I call the great big eraser. And that is the natural sign. And it looks like this, and it takes the note back to what it originally was. So it's like an eraser. So if I said, oh, I want the F to be sharp. So I would play the F sharp, but then right after I'm like, change my mind. I no longer want the F to be sharp. Then I would put the natural sign right after it, and that would change the F back to what it already was. Okay, so it's simply like a great big eraser. So I had F sharp, but I don't want any more, so now I put this in front of the note. Okay, now we don't have any notes here, so it has no effect because there's no notes. But say there was an F note here that they wanted sharp, and then the composer says, but now I want it natural. Then they would put that in front, and that would change everything again. It's like a big eraser. So it goes back to its original form. So the worksheet that I sent home this week is pretty easy. It's just going to have you draw a whole bunch of natural signs, okay? You've drawn some sharps, you've drawn some flats, and now just on your own, I'd like you to draw lots of natural signs. So then at this point, we will have studied the sharp note, okay? Raises a note, a semitone. Semitone is the fancy word for very next, right next door. Or the flat sign, which lowers a note, a semitone, which is just the very next note. And the natural tone, natural sign that returns the note back to its original pitch, original note. It's like the big eraser. Okay, so those are the things in written music that you would see often. So this is the sheet for that. All right, so that would be some of the work that you could work on this week. Now, I'd also like us to grab our ukuleles, and I want to review a little bit of cooperation hop. There is a notation on the school site that has cooperation hop. So I hope that you're taking opportunities to listen to it, okay? What I want to do now is just review and add a little bit more. So you actually have the lyrics. So it might be nice as you're playing the chords and reviewing them that you're singing the song aloud, okay? So remember, we have the A chord, and then the F sharp minor we just put down. Then the D, that's the 3 stacked in a row. And then the E chord, which we were doing cheater. The actual E chord is this, but it's a little tricky to move there just yet. And because we haven't had a lot of time to practice together that, I'm going to just do a little short form of that, okay? Now, the only thing I want to add is where we go in Don't Be Left Out, because friends helping friends is what it's all about. So we're going to go on to there. That will be the only new addition, and I'm going to go all the way through it, so don't worry. But you've got your D chord on the part that is friends helping friends is, and all we're going to do is lift the middle one to make that slight change, okay? Is what it's all about. And that's the only addition to it, okay? So let's go very slowly through it and try and sing it with me, and hopefully we'll get back together and do some of the actions eventually, okay? So let's start. Doop, doo, wop, do the cooperation hop. Ready? Keep going. Once you start, you never want to stop. Back to the A. Jump right in, don't be left out, 'cause friends helping friends is what it's all about. And that's as far as you need to go. So that's just a repetition of all the chords, except we've added this D major and we've lifted the middle note. Okay, so we've done a variation on D sharp minor, but we're just doing slight variations as we're taking it as simply as possible, as I'm not there to do the actual finger corrections with you. I'm doing kind of a short version of that, okay? So I want you to work on that and add that part and try singing along. And remember, we have it on the site, the school site, Cooperation Hop, so that should be helpful to you. Okay, now the other thing I'd like to do today is remind you of the healthy rules for singing. When you're singing, I want you to sit tall, even though you're holding your ukulele, okay? Think about what you're singing about. As much as you can, avoid the sight reading. Now, that's more for just reading lyrics. Because we're working on the chords, keep watching the chords that you're playing. Try and memorize up until we do what we worked on today. Sing with good breath support. So that's part of sitting nice and tall and maintaining good posture. And sing with a darker tone. That means rather than a really shrill sound, sing from your chest, okay? Not from your throat. All right. Now, I'd like you to go grab something to use the rhythm, and we're going to add a little bit more of our Pilgrim's Progress story. Let's review, and I'm going to turn you slightly to look at my board here with the different rhythms, and let's review what we've talked about so far, okay? So, we have talked about different rhythm patterns, and you may notice that for the most part, we have only eighth notes and quarter notes. Sorry, we're trying to get that to stand up a little. Some half notes. Not a lot of whole notes yet. I'll try and add some of those in maybe a little further through our story. So let's start at our first one, was City of Destruction. Eighth note, quarter, quarter. So you can clap that or tap that. Let's try that together. Okay? City of Destruction. And then we use the word pilgrim for 2 quarter notes. Pilgrim. And then we would use the word evangelist, 4 quarter notes, each with 1 beat. Evangelist. And then the ultimate destination that Pilgrim was heading for was eighth note, half note, eighth note. So celestial city. Okay, so eighth note, half note, eighth note. Then we moved on last week to gate, and that's a quarter note up there. Okay, gate of decision. Quarter note, eighth note, quarter, quarter. Gate of decision. And then today we are introducing a new character, and his name is Mr. Goodwill. And so that is a pair of eighth notes and quarter, quarter. So Mr. Goodwill. Let's try that because that's your newest addition to today's story. Mr. Goodwill. All right, so let's pick up where we left off, and I'll do my best to try and keep the story down in front here and make sure that you are also able to look at the rhythms. So we last left, Pilgrim had just been going through the, where had he gone through? What was the rhythm? The gate of decision. Let's try that. Gate of decision. And he had been grabbed quickly. And as the arm grabbed him, he was startled and he was yanked in. And as soon as he got through the door, he could hear this sound. Bing, fling, bing, fling, bing, fling. And Pilgrim looked at the gentleman and said, "Sir, what is that noise? What is happening? Why did you grab me? And who are you?" Well, the gentleman said, "Slow down, Pilgrim. Pilgrim, let me tell you who I am. First of all, my name is Mr. Goodwill. And I was saving you from those arrows that were flinging at you. You see, the evil one, Satan, was trying to stop you from going through the gate of decision. And so I rescued you before he could get you with those arrows. You see, the evil one would like to stop you from getting through the gate of decision. And some of those arrows, let me quickly grab." And he opened the door and went and quickly grabbed a few. And on them, it said, "Wait a while. Everybody's going to laugh at you. You're not making a good choice." You see, the evil one, Satan, is sending these arrows and doesn't want you to go through the gate of decision and is trying to stop you and sending those arrows to keep you from going. But you stepped through. You avoided those arrows. Well, Pilgrim said, "Thank you, Mr. Goodwill. I had no idea what was happening to me. Thank you for saving me. Whatever would I have done?" Well, Mr. Goodwill said, "You are safe through the gate of decision. Gate of decision." But Pilgrim asked again, "Pilgrim, I still carry this enormous burden on my back. Why can't I get rid of it?" Well, have you been reading the Bible that Evangelist gave you? Oh, Pilgrim lowered his head and said, No, I didn't really spend a lot of time with that." Well, you should have been. Come, hand it to me and I will show you. You see there the cross? That is where you need to kneel. You need to be truly sorry for all those things that you've carried in your burden, all the sin in your life. Are you sorry for that? Do you understand the opportunity that you have to get rid of your burden? And slowly, Mr. Goodwill read through the part about how a wonderful man named Jesus, who was sent by the good king from the celestial city, came and died on that cross to take all the burdens of everybody away, all their sin. But they had to make a decision to ask for forgiveness for their sin and to ask for those burdens to take away. Mr. Goodwill Mr. Goodwill turned one last time to Pilgrim, and said, "Are you ready to do that? Do you truly want to do that, Pilgrim?" Pilgrim looked up at Mr. Goodwill, and said, "Yes, I am so sad that the good king who came from the celestial city had to do that for me. And I'm so grateful that he did that for me. That man named Jesus died on that cross. And yes, I am sorry." And he truly was. And at that moment, something wonderful happened. And next week, when we're together, we'll find out what that is. I don't know if you're noticing that almost every word we say, every sentence, always has rhythm and step to it. Remember we talked at the very beginning how we're rhythmic creatures created by God. We are his instruments. We are his music instruments. So enjoy the rest of your time together. Work on that work, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.